Emmanuel Levinas thinks about the great absence of the Western philosophical tradition, the other. But who is the other? Can I meet him? Or the moment I approached him, I lose him? Who are the possible others? Who is the other? My son is another, my father is another, my partner is another, my neighbor is another. The great question that will run through Levinas' work is about how I relate with that other. Because the relationship with the other is always conflictive, since it is difficult for me to understand it. It is difficult for me to accept the differentiation of the other. And it is even more complex because even when I think or believe that I understand the other, I am also somehow forcing the other to stop being who he is and fit into what I need the other to be. The other is an other because it does not make sense to me. I have no way to even define it in words, and that is why I put it in that place of much alterity. Levinas speaks of irreducible alterity. The relationship with the other becomes paradoxical because the more I want to understand the other, the more its otherness is taken away. I take his difference away. Then, what is the paradox? The paradox is that if I succeed in bonding myself with the other, it is at the expense of the other losing part of its singularity. That is, my bond with the other, but it is no longer other. Totality. Totality refers to the tendency to view our own truth and ideas as superior, excluding and dismissing the perspectives of others. When faced with a difference, we try to assimilate the other, fitting them into our preconceived notions. Infinity. Levinas calls the other infinity, as they always exceed us, and they demand that we step outside ourselves. However, our immediate reaction when confronted with the difference of the other is to try to tame them and make them fit into our preconceived ideas. When we fail to do so, the other's difference questions us and can lead us to reject them. Rejecting the other and rendering them invisible perpetuates societal bias and exclusion. The face. Levinas uses the metaphor of the face to help us understand the other. The face of the other is the closest thing to us, but at the same time, it remains unattainable, always eluding complete assimilation. I have it next to me, and yet, although it is close, it is radically far away because I can never finish assimilating or incorporating. The face of the other, who is different, marks the singularity of the other in front of me. The face represents the presence of what surpasses us, and it demands our attention and response. The stranger. The figure of the stranger epitomizes otherness and vulnerability in Levinas' philosophy. The other is always considered weak, as we have the power to name and define them. Our ethical responsibility lies in choosing between prioritizing ourselves or defending the other's otherness. But what happens when one opens up to the otherness? This is the most difficult part. Consider the following example. I'm at home when someone from outside knocks on the door and says, "Hello, I'm the other." To which I respond, "Come, go ahead, but you must understand that the rules have already been established." But the other comes with its own singularity, so the other can easily adapt to what has already been structured, but we are unothering him. When someone comes from outside and knocks on my door, it creates a dilemma. An ethical dilemma. Especially if the person who knocks comes to ask and bothers. If someone knocks on my door, I will open it and ask, "What do you want?" And he says, "I don't know, a bit of food." To which I say, "Okay, wait," I give him some food, and the other leaves. The problem is over. There is no otherness here because there was no bother. The problem is that when the other knocks on the door and demands that I go against my will, he says, "I'm hungry." So I go to the kitchen and tell him, "Look, I have this left over." And the other looks at me and says, "I don't want leftovers. I want what you're eating." So I look at him and say, "But it's my food, why do I have to give it to you?" And he says, "Because I'm the other." What do you do in that situation? You will most likely not give your food because you prioritize yourself. How do we kill the other? Rationality and reductionism strip the other of their unique existence, reducing them to faceless entities. Ignoring the call of the other's face is considered the highest form of unethical behavior or murder. Description, systematization, and categorization further objectify the other. Hospitality. There is a concept that is essential to Levinas' philosophy, and that is the concept of hospitality. Hospitality is a word that implies always being open to what the other needs. In ancient times, for example, hospitality said that the other always has priority over food. If I was eating there with children and a foreigner came in, I had to take my food to give it to the other. That is being hospitable. It is the priority of the other over me. Caress. The act of caressing someone one loves, whether it be a couple, a child, or even an animal. In the caress there is no desire to submit, to appropriate the other. The distance of the caress is a very strange distance. It is not the embrace of the other, it is a slight, soft, non-invasive touch. Perhaps with the practice of hospitality and caress, we can have a different relationship with otherness. And, rather than end up understanding the other, which is always a way of unothering it, be able to understand that when the other appears. The best way to meet is to be able to get out of me. To meet with the other with his needs is always a priority.